Hey everyone, I want to take a few minutes to go through a paper with you guys to point out some errors that this particular client has made, because a lot of them are errors that lots of clients make a lot of times, and it's going to be helpful for you to see those errors in practice and figure out how to fix them. Second reason that I picked this paper is that this client, I know, worked with a few of you in the Writing Center on this particular paper, yet somehow the paper came out with lots of problems. We want to make sure we're offering the best tutoring we possibly can and that students are leaving with the best papers they can. So let's take a look at this together. There will be a quiz at the end that you can take on Blackboard, and we'll make sure that we know how to avoid letting students leave with these kind of errors in the future. So right off the bat, when somebody's writing in MLA format, we want to make sure that their paper is set up in correct format, even including the correct heading. Client has put some extra spaces here. I don't know why. Take those spaces out. Enter after the date, title, enter after the title, end of, go straight into the essay. All right, now, this particular paper, the student hopefully showed you the assignment. This is a paper that was for my class, and the student is required to write a refutation of an article. So what that means is that the student needs to choose an article written by a specific person in which that person takes a stance and argues in favor of some position. The student refutes that position. They go point by point through the person's argument and shoot down each point so that they ultimately shoot down the thesis. The assignment talks about that, and I tell the students again and again and again. So the very first thing you should do when you sit down with a student is take a look at the actual assignment and ask them what the teacher has said about it. Now, if the student can't tell you what I said, that's the student's problem. There's nothing you can do about it. But when I've said it as many times as I have, I hope that some of it has rubbed off on them and they'll be able to tell you what I'm looking for. I mention all of this because the student does kind of a mediocre job of refuting the person's argument. And we'll talk about when he's doing a good job and when he's not. So starting off, should we abolish the death penalty? I don't know. This is not really a debate over whether or not we should abolish the death penalty. This is supposed to be a refutation of somebody's claim. So we're already off to a sketchy start. Some say that the United States death penalty should be abolished because of many reasons. That's kind of a pointless sentence. According to the Merriam-Webster Dictionary, the death penalty is death as a punishment given by a court of law for very serious crimes, otherwise known as capital punishment. Now, that might be a quote. If it's quote, it has to appear in quotation marks. Whether it's a quote or not, I have to ask, what is it doing in there? Is there really anyone who is reading this paper who doesn't know what the death penalty is, or whose understanding of the death penalty is improved by this quote? I don't think that there is. I would suggest not putting this quote in there at all. If it is going to be in there, this is the incorrect format for the parenthetical citation. It's very unusual that the title of the website or the dictionary itself would appear in the parenthetical citation. The whole point of the parenthetical citation is to refer us to the works cited page. So here he has Merriam-Webster in the parenthetical citation. If we scroll down to the works cited page and look along, we don't actually see Merriam-Webster listed anywhere. So we're clueless. We have to actually look over and see that it's merriam-webster.com. So it should be the death penalty, in quotes, inside the parenthetical citation. The thing that goes inside the parenthetical citation is whatever is going to refer us correctly to the works cited page. So in the first case, it should be the death penalty. In this case, it should be the author's names. Author's names. This one is problematic in its own way. We can talk about it later. But if it's not matching up with the first word or words on the works cited page, it's not working. Usually it's an author's last name. If there's no author, it's going to be the title of the article. If there's no title of the article, which is a very unusual circumstance, that's when you would move on to the book, the website, whatever. People that are for the death penalty believe it helps with jail overcrowding, reoffending, and it offers closure to the families of the victims. Well, here he is giving the point of view of some people without actually telling us where we get that information from. We need a source here. Who are these people? Where did he find out these reasons that people are in support of the death penalty? The death penalty has existed for many years, but is only legal in certain states in America, as some states have already abolished it. Look, there's a sloppy error in American. We know that's not right. You all know that's not right. Catch things like that. Help them out. Reading out loud can help with that. So this is, again, the kind of thing that could have support Put some sort of a citation that tells us where you're getting this information about what states it's legal in and what states it's not. The death penalty is inhumane because it does not allow for forgiveness and causes the body overall harm. Okay. While we are living, we have the option to think about our mistakes and move on from them, but once we are dead, we cannot think about our actions. This is a valid point, but he doesn't ever really do much with it, so I would question why he brought this up to begin with. We're also getting pretty far into the essay without mentioning the article he's about to respond to, but finally he brings it up. In the book, no comma here. If you put a comma here, this clause then implies that this is the book, the only book that's ever been written, which is not what he intends. In the book, The Death Penalty from an African Perspective, Views from Zimbabwean and Nigerian Philosophers, Bruce Fine has offered harsh critiques of the death penalty. Okay, a legitimate explanation of what this book is. In his article within the book, he goes on to say, abolitionists may contend that the death penalty is inherently immoral, but that is an article of faith, not of fact. All right, so the point that Fine has just made is that you cannot irrefutably say that the death penalty is immoral, because to say something is immoral depends on your particular beliefs, whether they be moral, religious, ethical, philosophical, whatever. He is not specifically talking about religious faith here, as the writer of this paper later implies, but we'll ignore that for just a minute and think about how do we respond to this guy. He is saying it is an article of faith, not of fact. So if we want to refute this claim, that means that we're going to have to prove that no, it is an article of fact, not of faith. That's what a refutation would do, but that's not really what the client does next. Basically, Fine is saying that the death penalty is based around faith and not facts. Kinda. When he says faith here, we got to make sure we're getting the right interpretation of faith. He then elaborates by saying, the death penalty is an awesome punishment. It should be applied sparingly to the most egregious and shocking crimes committed by the most unrepentant and callous offenders. And notice here, he's put the quotation mark on the wrong side of the parenthetical citation. This implies that the author of the quote actually said 69, which he did not. Quote goes here, and the parenthetical citation goes afterwards. I feel that getting rid of the death penalty can be looked at by using facts and not faith, as they will show that America will be better without the death penalty. Okay, so let's see some of these facts. Let's see some of these facts that prove that the death penalty is not a moral issue, which is what Fine is claiming. We want to refute that point. While growing as children, well, that's kind of a pointless introduction to begin with, and it's certainly redundant to say both, as children or while growing, we are taught to forgive and forget other people's actions. Some people are, not everybody. I'd be careful with a blanket statement like that. However, Fine is overlooking the fact that humans make mistakes. I disagree with Fine's view that the death penalty is humane. Now, where's he getting that? Where did Fine say that the death penalty is humane? So far, he hasn't said anything about that, so we would need some sort of a quote to show that Fine believes the death penalty is humane. Because as recent research has shown, there are several inhuman. He starts saying inhuman instead of inhumane. Make sure he's not making errors like that. Inhumane methods including gassing, lethal injection, and electrocution. Britannica, it's the name of an encyclopedia, so it has to appear in italics. Make sure that people are putting their titles in the correct format. Describes how the gas chamber is painful, stating, comma, there is a consensus that cyanide affects many parts of the body. It is unclear at which point an individual becomes unconscious or dies because pain and consciousness are difficult to measure. Does this quote really say that lethal injection is, or that the gas chamber is painful? I think it implies that it might be, but it's just saying that we're not sure exactly when you lose consciousness and exactly how much pain you're feeling. I don't know that this quite proves his point. All three methods above cause the deaths of the convicted to be painful because the human heart has a heart attack which causes the body to die. We need a citation here. By the way, Britannica, just in parenthetical citation there, well, again, if we scroll down, no Britannica. So we would need the author or something like that. We would need whatever matches up with the works cited page. Fine says people think that the death penalty should be abolished because of their faith, but the facts show that the body suffers during execution. Therefore, I think the death penalty should be abolished. Now, what I ended up writing at the end of this student's paper was he lacks focus. I say, your main issues are focus and organization. It takes a lot of work by the reader to parse through your evidence to figure out how your claims refute the authors. So when I look at what he's said here, if I really think about it, I get it. Fine said, oh, it's an article of faith, not of facts. He has attempted to use these facts about how the death penalty might be painful in order to show, no, it's not faith, it is actually facts. But it's kind of hard to make sense of that. And also, he's not arguing that the death penalty should be abolished. He's merely trying to argue that, he's merely trying to refute Fine's point, that it's not a matter of faith, it is a matter of facts. So what he needs to do, and what you need to advise him, is to organize his paper so that it's more clearly a response to somebody else. So go ahead and explicitly say what you're responding to. This clearly shows that the death penalty is inhumane. Thus, support of the death penalty is not acceptable. Facts show that people are in pain while they're being executed. Thus, facts show that the death penalty should not be allowed. It is not a matter of faith. We are refuting his claim that it's a matter of faith. Now, we do get into more complex questions about, is it okay for somebody to be feeling pain while they're being executed? That again becomes a moral issue. I'm not sure that you can disprove Fine's point, but if he wants to, he needs to improve his focus. Now, the death penalty may be inhumane, but in addition, it has been proven to be costly towards taxpayers. Well, here's a weird thing. Taxpayers as one word, then taxpayers as two words. Can't possibly be both right, so you should catch something like that. Taxpayers are often convinced that lethal injection is saving them more money, with Britannica reporting, again, this needs to be in italics, and now this is just straight up the wrong format for a block quote. I don't know who told him to make the block quote look like this, but this isn't how it should look. Let's just look up MLA long quote, and we can go to Purdue OWL, and here's some instructions about how to do long quotations. It shows us that we don't need quotation marks. It shows us that we indent the entire thing, but we keep the spacing double-spaced. It shows us how to do the parenthetical citation at the end. So lots of problems in this. It jumps right out at me, and it's clear that not only did the client not look it up, that you guys didn't look it up either. Make sure, if you don't know how to do something, or if you're even in doubt at all, that you go to Purdue OWL and find out the specifics. It's all there for you. All you got to do is look it up. All right, so he has this quote. Lethal injection, now the most widely used method of execution in the United States, was first adopted by the U.S. state of Oklahoma in 1977 because it was considered cheaper and more humane than other electrocution, either electrocution or lethal gas. By the early 21st century, lethal injection was the sole method of execution in most U.S. states where capital punishment was legal, and it was an option for prisoners in all states. All right, so he just said taxpayers are often convinced that lethal injection is saving them more money, but that's not really what this quote says. This quote just kind of gives background about why and how lethal injection became the method. So we might want a stronger support that actually does what he's suggesting, that taxpayers believe it's cheaper. A recent article written by Kelly Erb, published by Forbes, again, italics, suggests that the Texas rate of lethal injections are inexpensive. According to Erb, it's true that the actual execution costs taxpayers fairly little. While most states remain mum on the cost of lethal injections because of privacy concerns from pharmaceutical companies, it's estimated that the drugs run about $100. Basically, Erb is saying the lethal injection chemical was cheaper. At this point, I'd like to raise some objections that have been inspired by the skeptic in me. That's a okay use of the they say, I say template, but I don't know that it really fits here. He's writing a refutation. Why not just say, this is wrong. Lethal injection isn't actually cheap. The Associated Press reports, well, typically Associated Press articles have authors, and it would be helpful to see who that author is. The state of Virginia, by the way, comma, when you introduce a quote, the state of Virginia has recently suggested that the cost to obtain lethal injection drugs has left from about $525 per execution to $16,500 in the span of 1 year. This is not necessary if you have included Associated Press in the signal phrase. If you do want to use it, it obviously has to come after the quotation marks. Now, this is an okay quote to show that lethal injection actually is expensive. I say that lethal injection is costly as proven by the state of Virginia. Executing prisoners is costly and housing death row inmates costs even more. Kelly stated that it costs more to house death penalty prisoners as well. In Kansas, housing prisoners on death row costs more than twice as much per year, and there's the amount as for prisoners in the general population. And we would need to close quote, right? There's my quotation mark. We got to make sure we close the quote so that we know where it ends. In making this comment, Kelly shows the cost of having a death row at all. However, without the death penalty, this major cost to taxpayers would be much cheaper. Therefore, this urges us to believe that the death penalty is expensive, which is why I feel it should be abolished. Now, two problems with this paragraph. I don't know exactly what part of Fine's argument he is responding to. I don't see a quote or anything from Fine where he is saying the death penalty is cheaper and thus a good idea. That would be the justification for all of this paragraph where he is saying, no, in fact, it's not cheaper, it is more expensive. We want the things that we're saying to be serving as refutations and responses to the things that the author said. I don't see exactly what he's refuting here. This is another issue of focus and organization. He needs to be framing his responses in terms of what the author has said. And again, he's not arguing that it should be abolished, so he needs to quit focusing on this and focus on how is it that Fine is wrong. In the final analysis, the death penalty is argued to be both humane, not human, and inexpensive by both Kelly and Fine. It is shown by my evidence that I argued that the death penalty is in fact costly and inhumane. Again, sloppy errors like this, so easy to catch. Don't let them walk out with errors like this. The death penalty is costly because of the money used to execute a criminal and the cost associated with housing them prior to death. The death penalty is inhumane due to the distressed methods used to execute a criminal. This is an important issue within America because taxpayers, belongs to all the taxpayers, apostrophe, money can be used for better things such as parks, schools, and roads. We as taxpayers must have a say in the way the government uses our money. Those last couple of, that last sentence is kind of off topic. We're not talking about better ways to use our money. We're talking about whether or not capital punishment is the right way to be dealing with prisoners, and more specifically, is it expensive? Is it morally right? Again, his conclusion is okay, but is not showing exactly how he has refuted the argument. This is a big picture issue that you need to be looking at in addition to small picture issues. Is he actually fulfilling the requirements of the assignment? Now, if we look at the works cited page, there's lots of problems. You don't include the underline with a URL. This is obviously missing a lot and not in the right format. What is this? An article? A website? Who knows? We need correct format, either quotes or italics. If it's quotes, if it's quotes, if it's a article, italics, if it's a website, and if it's whatever it is, we need lots more information. The URL, stuff like that. Where's the spaces here in these people's names? Why aren't we putting the titles of the encyclopedia in italics? There's just so many problems here that I don't understand why you guys are not looking at Purdue OWL and getting the right format. Look at this, the Washington Post, and then here it's Washington Times. Which one is it? So many issues. We've got to be better than this. We've got to be on top of things. We've got to be keeping our eyes open for problems. A student who has come to the Writing Center 3 times and walks out with a paper like this is not getting the proper service that the Writing Center should be delivering. So I want you guys to take your time. I want you to use Purdue OWL when you have any doubt. I want you to ask me if you have a question afterwards. Send me an email. Stop by my office when I'm there. I know that a lot of times it's hard to find me because I go home to take care of my kid not very long after the Writing Center is open, but I check my email all the time, and we have the group me. Any questions, just ask me and I can help you out. I'm going to post a quiz on Blackboard. Everyone's going to need to take the quiz and get a certain score. I will give instructions about that when I make the post on Blackboard. If you have any questions about this paper or anything else, don't hesitate to ask. Thanks for paying attention, and I'll see you around.